The best challenges are the ones that take rigorous planning and testing, ending up with difficult but satisfyingly elegant solutions. And this is not one of those. You know, it started with the idea of beating Portal 2 without ever letting go of props, which isn't possible. So I tried working around this by making my health slowly trickle down while I'm not holding something. But this still caused a bunch of problems. You die at the start, you die at the end, sometimes you wouldn't die at all, or you'd die no matter what. I think you can start to see why this isn't very elegant. But I didn't give up on the idea just yet. Let's just say that the health only starts depleting when you first drop something in the current level. The elevator rooms also become save zones. Entering one of those pauses the challenge and regenerates your health for the next level. I've also previously discovered that the entire game is beatable by just pushing cubes around rather than picking them up. So I've disabled all collision with those, and to even further incentivize picking up props, I made it so that the player cannot pass through portals before holding something in the current level. Now, there are still some levels that technically might not require a single pickup or teleport, so to make sure you can't just skip the main purpose of the challenge, the elevator room will automatically kill you if you hadn't picked anything up by the time you reach it. Still, even with these conditions, some levels remain impossible to beat. So I've made some specific adjustments to those as well, like adding props or... you know what? You'll find out. Okay, admittedly that's a lot of rules, but it gets more intuitive the longer you play. Trust me, I would know. I spent nearly 15 hours total on this challenge. Yeah, I thought this was gonna be a short one at first. I had thought that at least the first few levels should be dead simple. While I was explaining the challenge to my livestream chat, I could use the radio in the glass container to both show off how the mod works and to clear the first puzzle with ease. But the next level, Portal Carousel, pulled no stops. I don't think you can solve this without a fair amount of experience with glitches. The only holdable prop on this level is this cube behind a sealed glass cage. But because we can't pass through portals until we've held it, this makes it impossible to actually reach it, right? Well, sort of. It turns out that this cage isn't actually sealed off as nicely as you'd think. There's a super tiny gap under the glass through which you can grab the cube for just a brief moment. This was enough for me to run around and hop through the portal moments before dying. Now, that all sounds very epic, but we're not done just yet. If I just slam it onto the button, I won't have enough time to waddle over to the exit before running out of health. This is where I employ another speedrun strategy, throwing the cube over the glass and just making a run for it, praying that it lands. The next map is where we get the portal gun. Now, I know what you're thinking, and no, the gun does not count as a holdable item.
Pick up the portal gun as an object? Okay, I've seen this mentioned like 5 times. At smartasses in chat, the portal gun is not an object. I mean, it is, but it's not one that you like hold in front of your face like 2 feet, okay?
But because I technically haven't picked anything up yet, I can't actually pass through portals. Not like that's a huge problem anyway, as you can just make this jump to clear the gap instead. What we can hold here, however, is the only prop in this level, a convenient little chair in the corner of this office. And we kinda do have to pick this one up for clearing the ending gaps and for entering the exit elevator safely. Remember, if I haven't held something, it will kill me. And now that we have the portal gun, we get a whole new class of props to our disposal. Cameras. They're like a get out of jail free card when you've got no other prop to hold on to. And these things are absolutely everywhere. So, needless to say, they are very versatile in a pinch. Speaking of which, the next level wasn't actually possible as is. I had to make a small change to let us get out of the first room, which, of course, involved moving this camera to a portable surface. And even though I only control a single portal, I could get the camera to roll through it while falling, so that I could catch it when it ends up on the other end. Another thing this level taught me was how the screen shake from taking damage shifts my view upwards quite a noticeable bit. It's like recoil that doesn't actually affect where you aim, which makes it look like I'm aiming much higher than I really am. This is gonna get much more annoying later on. Okay, the next level definitely does require a special introduction, because while I can just pick up the camera and do the speedrun trick to get the cube, problems arise when you notice that the airlock between chambers has 2 fizzlers, and there are no props immediately available on the other side. The strategy here was to pop this camera off the wall and pick it up when it falls down to us. The thing is, this orange portal opens incredibly slowly, and the camera won't dismount until it does. So a lot of speed was necessary, and of course delaying the damage as much as possible was essential. I had a bunch of ideas on how to trick the game into thinking I'm holding the camera for longer. I would try to clip it into the wall, get it stuck inside the door, fling to the door, clip it through the door and fizzler, but nothing really made this easy. I still needed that raw movement to just make it to the other side faster. But luckily, a certain source buddy hopping and Portal 2 speedrunning expert entered my chat to drop a few helpful tips, which were definitely working. It's just that, by now, we had spent over an hour on this level alone, and my feeble brain just couldn't keep up.
No, you see, the point is, I don't throw for content. I just suck enough to, like, make content out of sucking. Wait, okay, hold on, no.
And because of how unfocused I was getting, I also got this to happen.
Oh yeah, I'm so dumb!
If you didn't catch that, well, neither did I. I'm talking about the camera, of course. Well, actually no, I did catch it. I held it for like a fraction of a second before accidentally letting go of it. But this confirmed that it was possible. It assured me that we were close. And just a few attempts later, this happened.
Yes! GG, there you f***ing go. About time. 4 HP left. Camera in hand.
Compared to what I just had to go through, the rest of the level was incredibly easy. Stick the button, land the fling, and that's it. Now, if you think that map was hard, I want to know what you'll think when I tell you that the next level is literally impossible. No strings attached. Looks like I genuinely forgot to go through this one in my QA testing. So, when we arrived to Secret Panel, I quickly realized that this exact combination of rules made it impossible to beat. And here's why. Doing the level normally requires going through a portal first. Luckily for us, there's a way to skip that by going above the ceiling. Still, there's another bigger issue. There's a cutscene here that requires you to pick up Wheatley and plug him into the wall to open the panel. But he doesn't do this right away. He spends a bunch of time telling us to turn around and not look while he does whatever it is he does. And by the time that I can pick him up again, I'm already dead. I spent a bunch of time desperately looking for some way to skip this that didn't involve going through portals, using every tool I had. But alas, nothing. I ended up exploiting a bug in my own mod that let me teleport out of the room after getting Wheatley to drop. This is technically cheating, depending on how you're looking at it, since we're not supposed to be able to do this, but if it weren't for this bug, I would have just modified the map instead. But it's not all bad, don't worry. I don't actually neglect all testing past the first 5 levels. In fact, I had a very cool trick planned for transitioning into Wake Up, but it does require some explanation, so let me give you the fast version. So, I can't just go into the GLaDOS Wake Up sequence dry. If I did, there would be a long chunk of time after plugging in Wheatley where I'm not holding anything, and of course this would kill me. There are other props in the level that I can hold on to, but the game doesn't want us to drop Wheatley in the first place, so it's pretty much impossible to pick up anything else. So, how can we make sure that we only pick up Wheatley when it's necessary? Well, when you exit Secret Panel and load into the next map, you're supposed to be already carrying Wheatley, right? However, the game only saves your position between the levels, and not whatever it is that you were holding. So to work around this, the developers put a new Wheatley in the back left corner of the airlock, and force you to pick him up as the level starts. I know, it looks a little bit weird, but it all makes sense. And this is also where things get interesting, and where we have to take a look at a bit of Portal history. Portal 1 is basically a fancy mod of Half-Life 2, and because the physics engine was still brand new back then, there were a lot of subtle ways to exploit the gravity gun mechanics. One of those is called prop flying. It's where you stand on top of a prop and repeatedly spam jump and the use key to pick it up and jump off of it to gain height. The developers prevent this by making it so that you can't pick up the prop you're standing on. I think you can see where this is going. By standing in the back left corner where Wheatley spawns and doing a well-timed jump, the game will think you're standing on top of him when you spawn in, refusing to pick him up. I don't know, to me, this just feels like the perfect example of exploiting otherwise intended game mechanics. But okay, now that we've got that little British sphere rolling on the ground, what do we actually do with this? Well, we can't just progress without him. For some odd reason, the door to GLaDOS' chamber is rigged to open only in the presence of Wheatley. Even then, we do need him to activate the breakers and turn on GLaDOS. So, we play soccer. Kind of. You know, it's kinda hard to compare a football to a blob of steel, but the principle is the same. You kick it forwards, and it rolls. Most of the time. It did take like 10 minutes to get to the door.
We've now approached close enough with Wheatley that the door opens up, right? Now there's still this gap to make, but I've got a bit of a trick up my sleeve here. You see, we can grab pretty much any prop in this room now, including stuff like, for example, this clipboard, right? We can use this thing to push Wheatley around. So it's a little bit better, I think.
It was not better by any reasonable amount. In fact, the gun kept letting go of the clipboard every now and then, which made this much more annoying. So after an additional 20 minutes, I got him far enough to where I could juggle between the clipboard and Wheatley, plugging him in and immediately re-grabbing the clipboard. In contrast to all of that, Incinerator is pretty easy. You just grab one of the cubes falling from this tube and solve the rest of the level as per usual. In fact, most of the upcoming levels are this easy. In Laser Intro, all I did was move the camera to a portable surface. On Laser Stairs, the usual speedrun route worked without modifications, and Dual Lasers has plenty of random props to hold onto, and so on. A common theme here is that these levels are just very simple. I mean, to be fair, they're basically like the game's tutorial, introducing you to laser mechanics, which, actually, come to think of it, might be the reason it's so easy. This mod has nothing to do with lasers and everything to do with solid physics props you can actually hold, which also might be why things started to get interesting once we got to the maps that didn't focus so much on lasers, like Trust Fling. Here, we can't get access to any physics props before flinging through a portal, so that's not gonna fly. Or fling, I guess. But for that, we can just use part of the least portal strategy to avoid the need for portals in the first place. The way you do this is by slamming into one of the falling panels during the fling, and air strafing to hit the last faith plate, skipping the section in between. Then I can just press the button, swap out the cube for a piece of garbage, and clear the level. Not horribly difficult, but that's still 15 minutes down the drain. The speedrun for the next map, Pit Flings, features a super reportal. It's where you get temporarily stuck in the ground near a portal, gain a bunch of speed by spamming the other portal, and then release yourself to fling up to the exit. Now, you'd think you can't apply that here, as you can't use portals until you've picked something up, but the truth is that you can use portals. You just can't teleport with them, and as long as I keep most of my hitbox outside the portal, I'm safe. A super reportal only has me enter the portal very briefly. Of course, this still leaves the question of how can I get to the end with a prop in my hands? And for this, we can use the convenient fact that this map in specific has the broken fizzlers. I can just leave a portal up there, then go back and take the cube through it. For Fizzler Intro, there's not really that much to talk about. It's a simple map with a simple solution, so let's skip straight ahead to Ceiling Catapult. This one was tough, to say the least. As the name suggests, this level opens up with a faith plate aimed at the ceiling. There are no props nearby, so you can't go through the ceiling portal for now. Here, we can use a speedrun trick simply labeled Ceiling Skip that lets you entirely avoid using portals. The problem is that I'm just really bad at the game. Sure, I might know a lot of things about it, but when it comes to mechanical execution, I have a massive skill issue there. And speaking of skill, this video is sponsored by Skillshare. And while they might not fix your Portal 2 hops, they do offer a place to learn from thousands of online classes in productivity, design, even programming, and a whole bunch of other stuff to discover. For example, I've always wanted to feel more confident when making thumbnails. So I took a couple classes in graphic design by Ellen Lupton, like this one titled Demystifying Graphic Design: How Posters Work. So if you like the thumbnail for this video, that's where it came from. Even if you're unsure about what it is you want to learn, it is dead simple to just jump in and explore. So if you want to try it out, the first 1,000 people to use the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Anyway, this jump was actually taking me way too long. So long, in fact, that after an hour and a half, I still hadn't gotten it once. Keep in mind, this is something that people can do consistently. But whatever, as much as it does hurt to say, I skipped this part of the level. Knowing that it's possible was good enough, and I wasn't gonna get any closer without actually practicing my movement. The only problem is that the next trick also required movement. Or so I thought. First, I jumped on these rising panels to tap the button, which activates the cube dropper. This was pretty easy, as I had actually made the panels rise up slower than usual. After that though, the plan was to exploit a scripted momentum trigger. The developers use these things to force the player to fling on a certain path, to ensure that they have enough velocity to make the fling, and that they aren't deviating from the planned trajectory. So my idea was to trick it into thinking that I'm flinging by just jumping and strafing into it with a lot of speed. And, you know, getting a lot of speed requires good movement. But this is where... I don't even know how to describe this. Look, we tried it for like half an hour, and I actually made it. I made the jump. So I ended the stream there, and came back to the challenge like a week later. And turns out, I just forgot that I had made it. I literally grinded it for another 20 minutes. And what's worse, this time someone in chat suggested that we just do a super reportal. The same thing we did on Pit Flings. I didn't actually have to do anything difficult in the second part. I just wasted an hour of my life for absolutely nothing. Peak stupidity right here, folks. Anyway, now that I have the cube, I can actually enter portals and use the faith plate. But we're not done just yet. I need the cube to be down there, actually redirecting the laser. My initial plan was to throw it there after flinging over to the exit, and then just make a run for it. But I doubt this is actually possible. So we ended up just settling for moving one of the cameras to a portable surface and holding on to that instead. All in all, this level was horrible in every sense of the word. It was hard, it was painful, and I've got so many regrets. Speaking of regrets, next up was Ricochet. I had made a small modification on this map, which just moves the cube closer to the edge of the platform. In retrospect, yes, I could have just done another super reportal without changing anything. It seems like I just forgot these things existed past a certain point. Anyway, the rest of this was just a portal stand to get the laser cube without letting go of the other one, and then pretty much just solving the chamber the intended way. Bridge Intro introduces, well, bridges, as well as another interesting concept that might not be super intuitive. Even if you can't go through the portal, the bridge can. I know, it seems simple and obvious when I spell it out like that, but it's surprisingly easy to forget when you're not actively thinking about it. And on the topic of new mechanics, Bridge the Gap is instrumental to learning that standing inside the portal isn't the same as going through it. This lets us climb walls without going through to the other side, pretty much just like a cheaper portal stand. Turret Intro also brought something pretty interesting, aside from turrets. Because of how the challenge works, the turrets themselves aren't solid either, so you can't kill them with props.
So like if I try and knock them down with something, you'll see that, it doesn't really work. You'll see that if we try to kill the turrets with a cube, it just doesn't work. The cube goes through the turret.
This level also contains a bit of a tribute to Chapter 1. The exit hallway is very long and comparable to the airlock in Future Starter, so we can use a similar trick. I got the turret stuck inside the door, then backed up and made a run for it. It took a few attempts and we only just barely got it. The final levels of this chapter focused almost entirely on lasers and nothing else. So again, just like the start of Chapter 2, this was very easy. Of course, this changed with the advent of the next chapter. My first instinct here was to try and get a hold of any prop. So, of course, I immediately ran to the first one in sight, the turret. I expected to be able to just jump off of the turret to get back to the bridge after picking it up, but I sort of forgot that you can't do that. So the next approach was to try and tap the button for the cube droppers through a portal. This wasn't super easy either because, I don't know, Chell's got short hands apparently. But once that's done, all I've got to do is juggle the cubes to line them up and run to the exit as quickly as possible with nothing in my hands. The remaining levels in this chapter are really just a lead up to the escape sequence. On Jailbreak, I used the light bridge to climb up to the button, then hopped past the trigger before the cube dropped to pick it up and carry it to the end. Unfortunately, the game doesn't let us bring this cube into the next level, and you might think that's not really a problem as we've got like 4 other turrets to work with here, but it's not that simple. I think I explained it pretty well on stream.
And that's because of one big trigger over here, this big one. As soon as the turret touches it, it sets a self-detonation timer. And after that timer, it explodes. So we can't make it all the way to the end without blowing up that turret.
So to avoid hitting this trigger, I instead jumped on top of Wheatley's rail and followed it up to the trigger. Then I just carefully brought the turret around it, jumped down, and ran to the end. The next map features absolutely no physics props. It might be the only Chapter 5 map like this, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, this wasn't gonna do it for the challenge. So I did modify the level a little bit to let me bring this turret with me. And let me tell ya, carrying a turret with you along super narrow catwalks made to fit only one person while bunny hopping the whole way is possibly one of the most annoying things you can willingly choose to do in Portal 2. This thing gets stuck on everything, but luckily we don't have to deal with him for long. To compensate for letting us smuggle him into the level, this is also where he gets incinerated. Instead, we get a much better companion, the Mug. It is much easier to carry around, as it gets stuck on random geometry way less. I did still save the Oracle turret though, so it's not like I'm completely neglecting them now. The only modification made here is the removal of a fizzler right before the long catwalk section, as otherwise you would just die before getting to the turret line. Once we're there though, I have to actually juggle the defective turret and the Mug, because I won't have anything to hold on to after I swap out the turrets. The template turret explodes shortly after you swap it out, and I definitely will not be doing the pancake shot with this amount of visual recoil. However, to make this a little less painful, we can use a clever trick instead of actually juggling them. In case you didn't know, the defective turret model is incredibly wacky. Moving any prop near it repels it away, almost like a magnet. The only other improvement I could do here is a portal bump, but it's not like we're going for speed anyway. Neurotoxin Sabotage and Tube Ride were pretty much unaltered. I'd argue it makes sense, as they're basically just glorified cutscenes anyway. Core Transfer, on the other hand, had a unique modification, to say the least.
We can't just go through this portal here. We have to pick something up first, right? We obviously can't just cross this whole distance. So, I'm gonna do something pretty risky. Okay, that works. So yeah, we're just gonna use this door. Because, okay, it's a bit heavy. It's gonna be annoying to lug it along. It drops itself every now and then. But that's the way we're gonna do this map, I guess. This also opened the door to some other interesting revelations. Yes, pun intended. What? What? Yo! Yo! We can fly with the door! I didn't even know that! Exit the building. This is the space program, funded by Aperture. Designed by P2R3. Oh, we can't. Oh, no, I do need that thing to survive. What? What? Where to go? What? I do need that door.
But as cool as the door is to play around with, it's also incredibly annoying in the long run. So instead, I found a piece of debris I could pick up from the exploding turrets. This was still not ideal, as dropping it on the ground meant that it would quickly despawn. And after plugging in Wheatley, the game didn't let me drop any props either. So I had to resort to the least portal strat and some other trickery to press the button. I also promise you that this isn't the last time you'll see something like this. In fact, after the long fall, we find that the bird that would usually bring GLaDOS away isn't here. In fact, the potato itself is just sitting on this beam, unconscious after the fall. This gives us something to hold on to for the next couple of levels. And only the next couple of levels. And, I mean, it's probably fine. Guys. Repulsion intro, the first actual puzzle of the underground section, already shows off a very interesting route. I start off by gaining some height on the blue gel so that I can tap the button from below. Once I've got the cube, I don't actually use it to solve the level. Instead, I stick the button to keep the exit door open. This is so that I could exploit a mapping oversight. The fizzler past the exit door doesn't extend all the way up, so you could just slip a portal past it and bring the cube with you, which is important because there are no other props immediately after the first chamber. And then, to enter the second room, I once again use a mapping oversight. This corner isn't perfectly sealed. There's a tiny gap through which you can shoot a portal on the ceiling surface. Of course, that portal is useless without another portal I can walk into. So, to get back, I just do some parkour along these support structures. And this gets us into the second puzzle of the level. To start off, I first grab the cube here by the moving platform. I'm not gonna use it just yet, but it will become very useful later on. And to avoid having to put that cube on the button, I do a speedrun skip that lets me just barely bounce up. Once we're up here, I carefully position myself to set up for another button glitch, while making sure that I don't go too far so I don't fizzle the cube. Don't worry, you can't actually glitch every button like this. Every button is a little bit different, and this glitch is also initiated by a completely different strat compared to the first one. What this does is it flips the panel required for making the jump to the end. But we are still not done. I can't just jump over to the end now. There's a long catwalk right after the fizzler, which I just can't hop across in time. So I need a prop to hold on to. And the only way I know to do this is by throwing the cube over the wall. Yeah, I make it look easy, but let me assure you, this took me nearly 100 attempts. And this is also where that other cube comes in handy. I can pick it up after making the throw so that I don't die while getting back up to the fizzler. Then all that's left is just a bit of movement, and what a way to kick off the puzzles, huh? Things were starting to get exciting, and I wanted to keep the ball rolling, but the next chamber requires portals to get through, and there are no props to hold on to. In fact, you'll notice that's actually a very common theme in these old underground levels. Unless a prop is necessary, you won't find any spares. Well, okay, technically the blue gel blobs are a physics prop, so in a cheeky attempt at making something work, I tried coding it so that you could pick up these blobs. But it's not as easy as you'd think, especially not with the pressure of a deadline approaching very quickly. I could have done some cheap and utterly broken implementation, but instead, you get a random chair. Still, that doesn't make this any easier. In fact, I'd argue the opposite. A chair can get fizzled, while a gel blob obviously can't. So this made me change up my strategy a little bit. I had to use a route I wasn't too familiar with, but it ended up looking really cool. After that, Crazy Box definitely keeps that ball rolling. We start off with a double bounce on the gel that lets us get some height to clear the first gap. So first room, pretty easy. And in the second room, we once again use the portal climb strategy to gain some height to then drop down on the blue gel and just barely make it onto the lip of this platform. The reason I'm doing all of this is because the only prop on the level is the Crazy Box itself, which is sealed in a glass cage high above the entrance. So before we get there, our main goal is to gain as much height as possible without going through portals. And for that, we first have to get out of the closed rooms and out into the open to perform a super portal. But turns out, this alone doesn't get me the height I need. With some clever use of map geometry, I can get close, sure. But I still had to resort to one final ace up my sleeve. A bit of cleverness with floor portals. Once again, I can't go through them, but I can still enter them. And if I shoot a portal away while I'm inside it, I get teleported back to the floor level. On its own, this isn't anything interesting, but if I'm doing this above Repulsion Gel, what happens is that I get a bit more airtime than usual, which means a bit more velocity than usual, which then leads to more height. This is a very slow and very tedious way of gaining height. Luckily, I didn't have to use it for long. I only needed a bit more height to land on the final support beam and portal climb up to the entrance. Here, we're greeted with the one and only cube on this level, but I'm not gonna pick it up just yet. If I did, I would have to drop it on the button, run over to the elevator, wait for it to rise up, and only then run to the exit before I die. That's a lot of stuff in a very short amount of time. Instead, I first solve the puzzle without touching the cube at all. This involves covering it with Repulsion Gel and then clearing it off and using portals to put it on the button. I then get the elevator stuck by blocking it with my head, and using more portals, I can then fling the box over to myself, grab it, and run to the end. As I said before, lots of these underground maps don't have many physics props laying around, so don't be surprised when I have to mod in silly things to make this work. But other than being a little bit annoying to carry around, this chair wasn't really that big of an issue. The ending fling had to be improvised a little, but it was nothing compared to what we just went through. The next map presented a bit of a dilemma as well. The only prop here is once again a cube sealed away in a glass cage far from the start. So to get there, you're supposed to use Propulsion Gel to cross a couple of gaps. So I used a super portal to reach the button that activates the gel dropper and then used it to run to the cube. From here, we don't really have to solve the rest of the puzzle. Because of how open these old aperture chambers tend to be, there are a bunch of places where slipping a portal through a gap lets me skip a large part of the chamber. Also, for those of you wondering why I didn't use the other gap in this level, I'll refer back to the screen shake. It is awful for hitting long shots. I don't really mind solving the rest of the puzzle the intended way if it means not having to mess with this. Speaking of open areas, Propulsion Flings contains an entire puzzle surrounded by just a test sphere. This lets me simply bounce over to the sloped surface and perform an angled super portal, which brings me over to the only cube in the level, after which we can now do the usual speedrun route.
And jump. Come on! Yes! No, please! What? No! Come on, get down, no!
Conversion Intro, despite being one of the largest maps in the entire game, still has no physics props. Or so you'd think.
A lot of you are experienced veterans of Portal 2. A lot of you know everything there is to know about this game. But as hard as you'll squint, as hard as you'll monitor every fine detail of the game, you may not know that this chair, you can pick it up, was always there. Even if you're a veteran player, this might have slipped your mind, you might not have known this, but if you back out, shoot a portal while the fizzler's closing, and grab the chair. There you go. Okay. Yep.
Okay, needless to say, there is no fourth chair and the fizzler doesn't turn off. I know some of these maps might feel a bit forced because of the sheer amount of modifications, but for the few levels that end up being super interesting, I think it's worth it. Speaking of which, the conclusion of Chapter 7 was hardly any different than usual. So let's talk about a level that certainly was. Funnel intro. If you've watched the Portal 2 speedrun or seen one of my videos before, you'll know about the crouch fly glitch. You get inside a funnel, you crouch, and then you fly. The ability of free-form flight should make this so much easier, right? Well, no. Flying doesn't help at all here. Movement is not the problem. You see, there's only one cube on this map, which doesn't seem to be anything unique when compared to all the underground puzzles we just went through, some of which didn't have any props at all. The difference here is that the elevator isn't exposed from the very start. The cube has to sit firmly on a button before you can reach the exit. And the problem is that this button is in a completely different room, and waiting for the funnel to gently elevate the cube into it is not an option. 500 attempts. That's how long it took me to eventually give up. I ended up with a pretty solid plan that I couldn't get a good run with. Let me explain. First, I would set up a couple of portals, one on the wall in front of the exit and one next to the button in the other room. I would then jump out of the portal while throwing the cube up. Then I'd place the portal I just jumped out of under me, and then right as I'm about to fling through it, I shoot the other portal under the button. This lets me fling to the door while the cube flings up to the button. If done right, you might have just enough health to make it through, but I never got a good run with it. Luckily, most of the chambers after that weren't so bad. As long as the final button is somewhat close to the door, I shouldn't have to break a sweat. Oh, and also, just like in my previous video, the damage I take from not holding a prop gives me a bit of velocity downwards. It can be pretty useful at times, not gonna lie. But yeah, we were pretty much speeding past Chapter 8 with how easy it was to access the exit door. Most of the time. Stop the Box is an example of a map that isn't built this way. The button is way too far from the door, and the elevator isn't even that close to the exit. There's a weird zigzag area between it, and because of this layout, the elevator safe zone actually extends to the playable area of the chamber. I'd say that's an incredibly lucky coincidence, as otherwise, believe it or not, this level would be impossible. There's just no way to navigate this whole distance in under the 3 seconds it takes for my health to drain. So I took the opportunity and ran with it. The following levels almost universally shared the trait of an open exit door with no obligatory conditions for entering it, other than just, getting to it, which wasn't really that big of a problem most of the time. That's why sometimes get offset. There you go, that's it. That's it. That's the one I wanted. Getting into the finales, I made sure to have the fly glitch active all throughout. I don't think it's possible to beat this without it. Most of these maps also have at least a few props I can hold on to, so only minor modifications were necessary. I did also have to put in a bit more work to get around the fizzlers on each of these maps, but that's still pretty straightforward. Finale 4, the last level of the game, is where things get a bit more interesting. You don't normally preserve the fly glitch here, so I can't get up to Wheatley's lair without going through portals. And even if I did, there's still a lot of downtime between plugging in cores, during which I'd easily die from not holding anything. So the solution is to drop the portal gun. In a somewhat climactic turn of events, Finale 4 becomes the final challenge of juggling between equipping the portal gun and taking damage, or simply holding it without the ability to shoot portals, all while trying to beat the final boss. Okay, come on. Burst the pipe. There you go, okay. Got some gel. Now we gotta pick up the portal gun, just to shoot a few portals, drop it. Okay, nice. Alright, there you go. Nice. Wait for the final bomb. Go through. Oh, dang it. Okay. Oh, this is gonna be annoying. I'm gonna try to... Okay. Just pick up the gun like this. Pick up the core. Drop it. Pick up the gun. Oh, wait. Oh, no. I can just hold the core. Right. There you go. Just hold this guy. Plug him in. Drop the gun. Pick it up. Nice. Okay. Time it.
Grab him. Yes. Oh god, 4 health. That was very close. Plug it in. No. Okay. Pick it up. Pick it up. Yes. Okay. And out. Throw it in. Portal gun. Nice. All right. Whew. There you go. Now it's just the final shot. That has been it. Okay. For real this time. For real. That has been Portal 2. But it's hot. I mean, cold potato. GG. Good game. This is definitely not my proudest project, but it was kind of fun, to be fair. In case you were curious, this is what it looks like when you take an idea that sounds good on paper and try to force it to work. I get a bunch of suggestions from you guys all the time, and I turn down most of them. Sorry, but this is why. In fact, shortly after finishing this challenge, I made a mod that combines some of the more common ideas people give me. I might make a video on that actually. Yeah, so if you want to see it, subscribe, I guess. But the moral of the story is think before you do. Thanks for watching.